Magic finger. There it is. The X-Files was a revolutionary science fiction show. Late 90s, early 2000s, it defined a whole generation back then. Me, my kids, and well, guess what? It's making a huge comeback right now in light of our culture, so the changes we're seeing, and in light of a lot of the conspiracy around COVID. Last week we looked at the first X-File phrase, trust no one. And I don't know about you, but I sort of left last week thinking that's not such a bad thing. I mean, cover-ups, conspiracies, misdirection, misinformation, political maneuvering. And you know, that's just the tip of the iceberg. But today we look at a different one, a different phrase. And of all the phrases that came out of that old TV show, this one is probably the most widely known. The truth is out there. On the X-Files, that meant despite the misdirection, despite the conspiracies, despite the misinformation, the truth is really out there if you are just diligent enough to find it. And in contrast, because you know, last week we had to remind everybody that Jesus would say, whoa, hold on a little bit. You know, you're supposed to love and accept everyone. Just because you're cynical about the times and the culture, don't let that rob you of the beauty of discovering, you know, people. But in contrast to that, this week Jesus would say, hey, right on. I totally agree with you. Last Sunday we said that the number one characteristic of a church and the number one characteristic of every Christian has to be love. And this is the love, agape love, that does the best for the person near you. It's not a fuzzy, warm, emotional, queasy kind of a thing. It's a decision and it's an action on how you treat the people around you. And we learn three things. Real love is the evidence of whether you're a Christian or not. I mean, it's not your view on the rapture of the millennium. It's whether or not you love one another. And if you do love one another, then you automatically serve one another, because that's what we all need. And that is most demonstrated by how we accept those who are different from us and those with whom we may even disagree. But here we are today, and to get to the real meaning of love that we sang about already, we have to look at something else, the truth. Because love and truth are two sides of the same coin. One cannot exist without the other. And to completely understand what Jesus taught about love, you have to know what he taught about truth. So I want you to look at a verse with me. From Ephesians chapter 4, Paul writes, as a prisoner for the Lord, I urge you to live a life worthy of the calling you've received. Now that word worthy, that's a neat word. That's another Greek word you're going to learn today. It's axios. Remember your algebra, that's where you get the word axiom. Because in algebra, and even in Greek, axios means to walk perfectly balanced. And Paul describes that as worthy. Your algebra teacher wanted both sides of the equation balanced. And when this side balances this side, you had an axiom. You had something that was perfectly balanced. Well, Paul's saying that God wants you to walk perfectly balanced. He wants you to have this perfect balance in verse 1. And then in 15 verses later, the same place, he tells you what that balance is. It's a tiny little verse that says, speaking the truth in love. That's the balance we're talking about today. That's a balance that is so hard to learn as a believer, but it is the worthiness that we seek. Now, A little secret. All of theology and pretty much all of life is trying to find the balance between the extremes. The extremes are pretty easy. I mean, they're way out there. Or these days, they're way out there. Common sense would have it that the balance would be somewhere in between. Let me give you an example. If all of your life is about love, you'll get nothing but a warmed over sentimentality. For example, you would say something like this: I am your friend. I love you so much that I could never yell at you. I love you so much that I could never push you out of the way. And I love you so much that I would never begin to intrude on your space, even if that car's about ready to run over you. That extreme doesn't work real well. But there's another extreme, and that's the truth extreme. If you live your life for only the truth, you will become legalistic and dogmatic. And you will say something like this: I'm your friend. I have to tell you the truth. I don't like the way you dress. I don't like the color of your hair. And how often do you change the oil in your hair? And I think you could use a couple lessons in deodorant management. And you know, a bath wouldn't even hurt. But I'm your friend, and I love you, and I will always tell you the truth. You don't need friends like that, do you? So in life, it's a balance between truth and love. Now, having said that, let me tell you 4 things you need to know. And you may be way ahead of me already. You may know all of this, and then congratulations if you do. Number 1, your beliefs are your choice. It's totally up to you. Nobody is going to force you to believe anything, even in here. We'll not force you to believe something. And if you don't want to believe something, that is still totally your choice. If you want to believe that Elvis is still alive, okay, your choice. You want to believe in the Loch Ness Monster? Not a problem, your choice. If you want to believe that the world is flat, I have great news for you this morning. The Flat Earth Society really does exist, and just in the past 2 or 3 years, they have started to take members again. And so if you want to believe the world is flat, your choice. Now, by the way, what you believe is your choice, so stop blaming your parents. Not their fault. Stop blaming your teachers. It's not their fault. I mean, even if they did teach you something wrong, you're smart enough now to believe the truth. Now, you probably heard somebody say, oh, it doesn't matter what you believe, just as long as you're really sincere about it. And that sounds good. It really does. That is so politically correct. It's so broad-minded. There's only just one little problem. It's a lie. In my office, I have a little bottle of something called lemon oil. I use it for my guitars. It keeps them nice and pretty and shiny. But despite the name of lemon oil, it's an absolute deadly poison. So you come in my office and reach up. I keep it high so the kids don't mess with it. You reach up and grab that little bottle of lemon oil and put some sugar with it thinking you're going to make lemonade. You're going to be dead meat on the hook, regardless of what you sincerely believed. So let me say this point number 1 like this. Your beliefs are your choice, 100%. But just because you believe them does not make them true. Number 2. Your beliefs determine your behavior. That's a Bible teaching. The Bible says your lives are shaped by what you think. And everything you do in life is based on these things that you believe. You sat down in a chair today because you're fairly sure it was going to hold you, keep you up. As you drove here today, you went through the greens pretty much convinced that the people on the reds were going to stop. When you leave today, you're going to go find some food. And you're going to believe that that food's going to be great, wonderful, and won't kill you. But what happens when you believe dumb stuff? What happens when you base your life on things that are not true? Well, let me just tell you, and you know this, if you sincerely believe you're clumsy, you're going to act clumsy. If you believe you are unlovable, you will act unlovable. If you believe you can't trust people, you'll find ways not to trust people. If you believe God is unconcerned about you, well, then you won't pray. And if you believe God is out to get you, you're going to go out of your way to avoid anything about God talk. Whether you like it or not, whether your beliefs are right or wrong, they will determine your behavior and how you live. Now, here's the second kind of principle. Right beliefs tend to lead to an enjoyable kind of life. Wrong beliefs tend to lead to a very unhappy, miserable life. Number 3, kind of going in order here, you see. The world has taught us all a lot of wrong beliefs. One thing I really miss because of COVID and with the growing popularity of the internet was the old supermarket tabloids. I loved them things. I'd go to Kroger's and I would find the longest checkout line. And I'd get me a copy of the Enquirer or whatever, the Daily Fish Wrap or whatever, and just read it for a half an hour as I was coming up to the cashier. You know the kind of information in there. Bigfoot is Roseanne's father, or, you know, the kind of stuff like that. A lot of people still believe that. But today, they have kind of gone their way, and the biggest source of misinformation on the planet is the internet. It's crazy. It's just crazy what you can find out there. Now, to make it worse, legitimate truth, legitimate knowledge changes fast. If you're a science teacher, the textbook you used 18 months ago has been trashed. In the field of science, the textbook lasts for about 18 months, and then it has to be revised. And you think about that. That means, were you in school, what your science teacher told you 2 years ago, some of it was wrong. And it wasn't his or her fault, because at the time they were just teaching what the book said. But now the book says something different because science has grown and we've learned something new about this, that, or the other little thing. Now, add to that another problem. Passionate people. I am one of 73 million proud baby boomers. That's people who were born between 1948 and 1964. So you're a baby boomer, raise your hand. Just see how we're doing here. Oh, yeah. We love our boomers here. 1/3 of all the boomers in the country were raised on the best-selling book in all of history, except the Bible, Benjamin Spock's baby book. And in that book, he advanced a lot of controversial things about how to raise children. And he really, really affected an entire generation of people. The Vice President of the United States once blamed him for the permissiveness of the 60s. Now, in his 70s, Dr. Spock held a press conference. And he stood up and he told the world, oops, I was wrong. I don't really think it worked the way I wrote it. And as much of an apology as we could get, he gave it. And I'm thinking, thank you. Never mind, I'm already dysfunctional. Although I have to be honest with you, in my house, my mother was kind of a smart lady. She read a chapter or two and then realized that the only value that book had was to spank me with when I misbehaved. Oh, now just add all the stuff out there in the movies, the media, even stuff you hear on Facebook. All your problems are somebody else's problems. This world owes you happiness. And you'll be happy when you get all that you deserve and all that you want. And you can have it all. And never, ever feel guilty about anything. And if it makes you feel good, what's the harm? The only problem is that most of us who have lived a significant number of years have come to discover that, no, it doesn't work that way. You live in the real world and you'll learn that those are untruths. All right, the point. I'm learning something new every day. And some days what I learn today, it makes me reconsider a little bit of what I believed yesterday. And so I have second thoughts, I guess. And I have to go back and reconsider the evidence. So all I'm saying here is your thoughts are yours, your choice. Because you believe them don't make them right or true. So always keep the ability to answer questions and seek the truth. Ask the questions. Now, number 4, the last one. Not the end of the sermon, don't get too excited. Number 4, if there's a God, the truth is out there. All right, I'm an X-Files junkie, I admit it, I love the show, but I really do think it's that simple. Fundamental question of the universe, is there a God or did it all fall together in some random chance? And you have to pick one because as we said, what you believe determines how you live. How you live determines what you believe. If you say there's no God, well, your life will be based on what you believe, what you feel, what you think, or probably whatever you think you can get away with. If you believe there is a God, then your life is going to be based on your understanding of God. Now, Christians, we believe in Jesus, and we believe in a standard of right and wrong because we have a God who has standards. So we're making a big jump here, but when you go out in the night sky and you see past all the beauty of the stars and galaxies, if you see a benevolent creator beyond that, all I'm saying is maybe you should listen to what he has written or what he says. If God exists, what he thinks, what he has said becomes very important. So what now? We're at that part of the message. So what? How do you respond to what I've just suggested? Number 1's obvious. You need to seek the truth. And you have a problem now. You live in a world that doesn't acknowledge the truth. There are those who believe it's all relative. There are those who believe there are no absolute truths, and what's right for you in this situation may not be right for me in that situation. And so everybody has the right to make up their own minds when it comes to right or wrong. Most of you were forced to read the book 1984 by George Orwell in high school. Yeah, another quick survey. How many of you had to do that and still remember it? Yeah, a couple bookworms there. Great. All right. Now let me tell you what it's about for all those who didn't read it. It was written in 1949. And his idea was to describe what the future would look like in 1984. And you know what? It's selling off the shelves right now. And after today's message, you might want to go and pick you up a copy and read it again. But anyway, it's a book. Its main character is Winston. And Winston works for the ministry of truth. His job is to change the past, to agree with everything the government says today in the present. Now, this is what Winston writes about his job. Every record has been destroyed or falsified. Every book rewritten. Every picture has been repainted. Every statue, doesn't that sound familiar? And street buildings has been renamed. Every date has been altered. And the process continuing day by day and minute by minute. History has stopped. Nothing exists except an endless present in which the party is always right. Wow, that's a pretty bold claim for somebody living in 1949. Now, if you question what Winston was doing for a living, rewriting the past to agree with whatever the government says happens today, and by the way, they did it every day, just to keep us confused and on our toes. Anyway, if you disagreed, there was also the ministry of love. Now, their job was to track you down and kill you if you disbelieved. It's not a happy book. I won't spoil the ending for you. But I will tell you that Winston finally learns the truth, and here's what he learned. Being in a minority, even in a minority of one, did not make you mad. There was truth, and there was untruth. And if you clung to the truth, even against the whole world, you were not mad. Now, the things that Orwell could only imagine in 1949, we openly practice in our culture today. All cultures are equal. All behaviors are equal. Nothing should ever be better than something else. And all choices are equal. All opinions are equally valid. All religions are equally good. And as Orwell would write, black is white, and white is black. They call that doublespeak. It's where two opposite extremes are true at the same time, which doesn't happen, does it? You want to lose your job if you're in the teaching field? Declare something is better than something else. I don't care what field you work in. You're in academia. Make a statement something is absolutely right and something else is absolutely wrong, and see how quick you lose your job. There's a lot of people who don't like Christianity. You're seeing more and more of it. The reason for that is that we do believe in truth. We believe in God, and we believe truth comes from God. Jesus once prayed for his disciples. He said this, "Make them holy by your truth. Teach them your word, which is truth." Now here's the point. The truth is out there. It always has been out there. I just want you to seek it. I want you to make up your mind to go for the truth. And it's not going to be easy. It's going to be so easy to just listen to whatever the commentator says on whichever channel you listen. But you need to dig behind it and find the truth. You need to share it. It's not going to be easy. It's not going to be popular. And it's probably going to be painful for sometimes. But number one, seek the truth. Number two, you need to believe the truth. Remember, we did some series about the I am statements of Jesus. These are places in the Bible where Jesus says, I am the bread of life. I am the light of the world, or I am the good shepherd. I am the great. And what we discovered was that in every case, he was claiming to be God. And the most controversial one of them all, where he says, I'm the truth, the way, the truth, and the life. You don't get to the Father except through me. Today, no one believes that Jesus didn't exist. There was a time people tried to believe that, but there's just too much evidence. There's just too much solid scholarship. He's real. He really was here 2,000 years ago. But now the question is, what are you going to do about those incredible claims he made? I mean, he openly told people he's God, God in the flesh. Now, if he wasn't, you do understand that would make him a liar or a lunatic, right? And who would come to church Sunday after Sunday just to worship a liar or a lunatic? But at the same time, you have to come back to those incredible teachings. Was he who he said he was? What are you going to believe? You're going to believe Jesus? You're going to believe the current culture? You have to pick one. I'm sorry, you really do. You can try the wade between the two, but your life's just going to be miserable. Sooner or later, you got to go one way or the other. The Bible says one day God is going to come back to judge all of us, basically on what we believed and how we lived according to that. Now, this is eternity we're talking about, so choose wisely, as the movie says. The last piece of advice is to live the truth. Seek the truth, believe it, but put it into practice. Now, you use the truth. You use absolute truth every day. Even if your college professor said, oh, I don't believe in absolute truth, you still use it. $20 and $20 is $40. Even if you only have $38 in the bank. You know, the truth is going to save you from a check overdraft charge. Truth in medicine will help you or kill you. How many of you want a pharmacist that says, oh, I have all these pills left and they're all so many different beautiful colors. One pill's as good as any, so let me give you about 30. No. Sports. Everybody looks at baseball and says, oh, what a simple game. But the truth is, baseball is based on this manual, about this thick, of huge, elaborate rules. One of those rules is that the umpire makes the call, right? Well, what kind of game would it be? We'd say, hey guys, what do y'all think? Yeah, let's just take a vote. Was he safe or was he out? No, it wouldn't be a good game. How about a game that starts and the guy hits the ball, but he runs to third base first? And he says, but I just wanted to do it that way. In sports, there's rules. In medicine, there's rules. And even in mathematics, there are rules, and they are all based on truth. So even if you don't believe in absolute truth, you live a life based on it already. Last scripture is from Colossians. For you were his enemies, separated from God by your evil thoughts and actions. Yet now he's reconciled you to himself through the death of Christ. But you must continue to believe this truth and stand firmly in it. Abraham Lincoln used to take kids around him, and he would say, kids, how many legs does a horse have if you called his tail a leg? And it'd all go 5, 5, 5. And he would say, nope, 4. Because no matter how many times you call a tail a leg, it's still a tail. Your life is based on truth. What are you going to do about it? How's it going to change the way? Come on up, guys. How's it going to change the way you live? Stand and share a final song with us this morning.